Hello friends, welcome again. This is Dr. Sangram Patil. This is part 3 of control and coordination chapter. We'll look at coordination in plants in this chapter. So as you know, plants do not have nerve tissue. We have nerves and nerve fibers in animals. The plants do not have nervous tissue, and they do not have skeletal muscles or any muscles for the sake. So there's no ability to move. That's why plants are immobile. But we do see certain movements, though they are not for translocation, not for going from one place to other. We see movements in the plants. And the typical example of such movements is the sensitive plant or touch me not or tickle me plant of mimosa family, where touching the plant causes sudden change in the leaves. The leaves fold up and they drop or they close. Okay, they fold themselves inwards when someone touches the plant. And this movement on touching, where the leaves drop and fold inward on themselves, is not related to the growth. Okay, so here is a diagram of touch me not mimosa family plant, where this is when it is not disturbed, and these are the leaflets that are closing inwards, and the leaves, they just droop basically. Okay, now second type of movement we see is when the seed actually germinates. So the root of the seed that goes down towards the earth, but the stem that comes out, okay, that grows towards the sun, into the air, away from the earth. So there is a directional movement of seedling, and this is related to the growth. So we've seen two types of movements here: growth independent movement, and this is a growth dependent movement. Okay, so we're going to see more details about the touch me not plant and its mechanism. First of all, I'll show you how the touch me not plant actually shows the movement. Okay, on touching the leaf, can you see that movement? Now see this second branch, all the leaves are closing on themselves, and then the third leaf. So when touch or any contact is made with it, the leaves will start closing. So how is that made possible? The touch is followed by movement of the leaves despite having no nervous tissue in the plant. So there is use of some chemical signals, some electrical signals, but there's no specialized proteins that we see in animal skeleton tissues. In animal skeleton tissue, we know actin and myosin. These are the specialized proteins that change the shape, and they make muscle contract, and that's how the human body or animal body moves. But there are no such specialized proteins seen in animals. Now shape change is due to the control of volume of water inside the tissue of the leaves. Okay, so the leaves, they shrink or they swell. This doesn't just happen with touch or movement, but also takes place with light, heat, and day and night based changes, such as in sunflower plant. The sunflower will change its direction depending on whether it is day or night. So mechanism is when touch or contact is made with the leaves, it generates electrical stimulus from the leaves to pulvini. Now pulvini, you might remember this part of the plant leaves. I'll show you here in this diagram. So this little swollen part here at the base of this branch or at the base of this leaflet here is called pulvinus. Okay, and this can be either swollen or it can shrink, and if it, depending on its state, it will cause the movement of the leaf either to remain in natural normal position or in a closed position. So these are the leaflets. This is a cross section. That's the pulvinus, that's the swollen base of this leaflet, and this is a vascular tissue. And when the contact is made, the turgor pressure, that is the pressure that is there inside this pulvinus, okay, is high. When it is high, the plant is rigid, okay, as a healthy touch me not before stimulus. When the turgor pressure decreases as caused by external stimulus like contact, the pulvini and the leaves, they droop, they close. So turgor pressure high, the leaves are open. Turgor pressure low, the pulvini and leaves, they droop and they close. And why does such mechanism exist? So this is to avoid predators. So if a herbivore, that is the animal that feeds on grass and vegetarian stuff, if they start nibbling on mimosa plant, this touch me not plant, bending the leaves inwards and drooping would make it more difficult for the predator to tear off the leaves, and it would also serve to expose the thorns of these plants. So some of these plants will have thorns. So because the leaves droop, they close, it's difficult for the herbivores to eat them. And also if these plants have their thorns, because the lips droop down, the thorns may become more prominent. Drooping also gives the impression that the plant is dead or dying, and is therefore not as appealing as fresh plant, potentially more nutritious plant that a herbivore would be interested in. Okay, so it pretends that it's dead, so the predator might get fooled with that. Such a rapid movement helps the plant dislodge insects that may threaten certain parts of the plant. So it may just get rid of the insects because of the movements. Now we've seen this movement because of the for the protection, that is not related to the growth. Now we'll see few movements that are actually related to the growth. So if you might have seen a pea plant climbing up other plants or fences by means of its tendrils. So you might remember this little spiral threads, fibers sent from the stem of the plant, of the climber plant, are called tendrils. Okay, so these tendrils are sensitive to touch. So when they contact any object of support, the part of the tendril that comes in contact with object does not grow as rapidly as the part of the tendril that is away from the object. Okay, so that the part which comes in contact with support object will grow less fast than the part that is not in contact with object. So this causes tendril to cling on to the support object. So and it circles the support object and it holds on to the support object. Now plants respond to stimuli slowly by growing in a particular direction, and this growth is a directional growth. Okay, So because of this growth, it appears that plant is moving. So this is a directional growth that causes the movement. Now let's see such example of directional growth. Okay, and here is an example, and that's also been asked in your activity 7.2 in your CBSE biology book. They ask you to fill a conical flask with water, cover the neck of the flask with wire mesh, keep 2 or 3 freshly germinated bean seeds on this wire mesh, take the cardboard box in such a way that it has one open side that faces the light coming from the window. After 2 to 3 days, you will notice that the shoots is a stem part. Okay, shoot and root. Shoots grow up, they bend towards the light, and the roots grow away from light. Now the second part of this experiment activity, after few days, once this is grown, they want you to actually turn the flask in horizontally and then observe the growth of the shoot. Now in this case, after few days, the shoots will start growing in upward direction and the roots will start growing in the downward direction. Now this is called as geotrophic growth. Okay, so negative geotrophic is away from the earth towards the light, and positive geotrophic is towards the earth, and this growth here is called phototrophic, towards the light. Okay, phototrophic growth of the plant. Now let's see more details into this growth, directional growth. Now environmental triggers like light or gravity will change the direction that plant grows in, and these directional or tropic movements can be towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus. So it could be phototropic when shoot bend towards the light while root bend away from the light. Okay, so that is phototropic movement. It could be geotrophic, like I have explained you. The shoots go away from the geography, that is earth, and the roots grow towards the earth. It could be hydrotrophic, so it is called hydrotrophism. Is the movement or growth of a plant towards the water. It is a type of trophism or directional growth response that is triggered by water. Plants are able to detect water through various stimuli, including changes in moisture levels and changes in water potential. So we can see the roots are growing towards the higher proportion of water. So this is a directional growth in the direction of water, that is called hydrotrophism. Or there can be a chemotrophism, growth of a pollen tube towards ovules. That moment will be seen in your chapter on reproduction. Okay, so I won't take in detail here, but I'll talk about this in reproduction chapter. Now the plants show trophism in response to various stimuli. The roots always grow downwards, the shoots grow upwards away from the earth. Okay, and this is called geotrophism. We have seen that. Hydrotrophism, phototrophism, and chemotrophism. Now let's look at how information communication takes place in the bodies of multicellular organisms. Now, speed of the movement that takes place in the plants is variable. In a sensitive plant or touch me not plant of mimosa family, the response to touch is quite quick. I've just shown you the video. But the movement of sunflower in response to day or night is slow. And growth related movements of plants are even slower. So the speed is variable. Okay. The speed of information transmission in animals is similarly variable. So in animals, the information can be transmitted as an electrical stimulus. This is transmitted with excellent speed, but it has got its own limitations. Okay, and the limitations of this electrical stimulations are such that they have to have the nerve supply, the nerve fibers have to reach each and every tissue, each and every cell to be able to conduct the electrical stimulus. But the problem is not every tissue or cell in the body is supplied with nervous stimulus. So there is a limitation. Second limitation is once the electrical impulse is generated in the cell and transmitted, the cell will take some time to recover, to reset the mechanism before it can work further. It can generate electrical stimulus further. So cells cannot continuously create and transmit electrical impulses. That is why in most multicellular organisms, along with electrical communication, electrical impulses, there are other communication pathways and they use chemical communication. Okay. Now chemical communication is through chemical compounds and they are called as hormones. So understand this is a very important topic, very interesting as well. Okay. The hormones can diffuse all around the cell. Okay. This is a slower communication, but it can potentially reach all the cells of the body regardless of nervous connections, and it can be done steadily and persistently. Okay, so where nerve cells cannot reach, your hormones can be circulated via the circulation as well as through diffusion. So hormones, because there are various types of body functions, there will be great deal of diversity of these hormones or chemical compounds that are used for chemical communication. These compounds are used by multicellular organisms for control and coordination of various body functions. Different plant hormones help to coordinate growth, development, and response to the environment. Okay, they are synthesized at places away from where they act and they diffuse to the area of action. Okay, now here I have taken the example of hormone auxin that helps in phototropism of the plants. So what is phototropism? The plant stem or offshoot growing towards the sunlight. So this auxin is synthesized at the shoot tip. It helps the cells to grow longer. Okay, so if the sunlight is coming from exactly from over the head of the plant, then the cells will keep growing tall. But if sunlight is on one side of this offshoot, then the cells that are on the darker side will have action of auxin and they will grow longer. So you can see there is a cell elongation, okay, cell elongation, and this elongation on one side will cause the plant to bend towards the sunlight. Okay, so this is auxin hormone for phototropism. Now there are other examples. You should just know the names of them, no need to know the details. That is gibberellin, okay, or gibberellin. They are gibberellins. They help in the growth of stem. Cytokinins, they promote cell division, and abscisic acid, they inhibit growth. So when the time comes when the plant growth should be stopped in certain areas, abscisic acid will be secreted and that will inhibit the growth, and it will affect the leaves, and there will be a wilting of the leaves in that area, and that is because of the effect of abscissin. So these are different hormones examples in plants. So now let us have a look at hormones in animals. So means of information transmission, we have seen there are chemical and there is electrical, and we are looking into chemical means now. So these are the chemical compounds called hormones. They are used for information transmission. Okay, now imagine an animal in a scary situation, very fearful situation, where the animal will have to either fight or it will have to protect itself and run away to save its own life. So this is called as fight or flight. Flight is running away, fight or flight reaction. So imagine a situation, okay, fight or flight. This involves complicated activities that will use great deal of energy in controlled ways. It will involve different tissues and their activities. Okay, now fighting or running, these are two different activities from each other, but both need some common preparation that can be usefully made in the body that make it easier to do either activity in near future. So body can keep itself ready to do either fighting or running away, and there is some common preparation that can be done by the body in a scary situation. So this can take place through electrical impulses via nerve cells, and second is through hormones, that is chemical communication. And in flight or fight response, the chemical that is used is adrenaline. Okay, so there is also a chemical called noradrenaline, but we mainly concentrate on adrenaline because this is more in quantity and more useful in acute stress situations, scary situations. So adrenaline, this diagram will show you how adrenaline secretion is controlled from adrenal glands. So these are the adrenal glands at the top of the kidneys. Okay, so that's adrenal gland. Adrenal gland secretion is controlled from pituitary gland via ACTH. So it's not important for you at this stage, but I'll tell you as an extra information. ACTH is adrenocorticotropic hormone. It is secreted by pituitary gland that acts on adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are situated at the top of each kidney on both sides. They are also called as suprarenal glands. Renal means kidney. Suprarenal means that are situated superior to kidney. Now adrenal glands, they secrete adrenaline and noradrenaline. And what do adrenaline and noradrenaline do? So they work on various systems. They work on metabolism and they work on various organs in the animal and in human being. Okay, so they prepare the body for fight or flight type of situations. It is secreted into the blood and it is carried to different organs, different parts of the body, including the heart. Okay, so that's the heart, that's the gastrointestinal tract, blood vessels, eyes, metabolic control, such as they increase blood sugar level, they act on liver to convert glucagon into the glucose, so more glucose is available for the animal, and they act on bronchioles, our airways, and they cause dilatation of the airways. So body is prepared to take more oxygen, more efficient breathing in fight or flight type of situations. So they have various effects. Okay, I'll show you these effects again in this slide. So major physiological effects of adrenaline. On the heart, adrenaline interacts with beta receptors to increase heart rate and increase force of myocardial contraction, that is heart contraction. So it increases the rate and increases the force of contraction of heart. On the blood vessels, the adrenaline causes vasoconstriction in skin and gastrointestinal tract, but it causes vasodilatation in the muscles, in the coronary, that is heart blood vessels, and in hepatic, that is liver blood vessels. So it has got different effect on the blood vessels in different places. So skin and gastrointestinal tract do not need blood in fight or flight type of situation, but muscles, heart and liver, they need more blood. So it causes differential actions, different actions in different blood vessels. Respiratory tract, increased respiratory rate and bronchodilation because of the adrenaline. Now in gastrointestinal tract, we have already seen it causes vasodilatation, vasoconstriction in gastrointestinal tract and vasodilatation in hepatic tract. But it also causes reduced digestion. So people might feel like vomiting, they might vomit. There is delayed digestion, increased breakdown of glycogen to glucose because glucose is needed in that situation. In central nervous system, adrenaline causes activation of sympathetic autonomic nervous system. Okay, so these are the effects of adrenaline on various systems in a scary situation, that is acute stress situation. And the organs on which they act, they are called target organs. Okay, so heart rate increases, breathing increases, blood sugar increases, the digestion reduces, skin blood supply reduces, the skeletal muscle blood supply increases, and the body or the animal is ready for fight or flight in the acute stress situation. So that's how endocrine system contributes to the control and coordination of the body actions. Now there is a activity that is given in your book, that is 7.3, and it wants you to have a look at the various glands in this diagram and identify them, endocrine glands, and check their functions. Okay, so we have just seen the adrenal glands, that is suprarenal glands, and we'll go through the other glands in a moment. Let me first take you through this difference in the growth between plants and animals. Now we have seen the plants have directional growth, so they grow towards sunlight, the roots grow towards the earth, so there is a phototropism, geotrophism, chemotrophism, hydrotrophism. So you can get leaves in various parts of the plants, okay? But in animals, the growth is quite different. It is not same as the growth in plants. It is more carefully controlled, okay? So you don't get this type of directional movement in animals. It will be a proportional movement, okay? Now design of the body is carefully maintained. So at each stage, the design is maintained. If you disturb the growth, if you disturb the growth of the plant by giving different stimuli like sunlight or water or chemicals, then it will grow differently. It will not maintain the design. It can have leaves in various places, other places, but in animals it doesn't take place. The design is maintained. You will not get extra digits, extra fingers or extra toes in different places. So it is design is always maintained. It is carefully maintained design, and growth is carefully controlled in the various places. Now the growth is genetically determined till maturity is achieved, whereas in plants they grow throughout their lives. So once the human or any animal matures, they stop growing, okay? And they would, like, if you look at human boys or girls, they will grow to certain age. They will have puberty, then they will keep growing in height, and at certain age, maybe around 20-21 years, the height will stop increasing. So it is genetically determined growth till maturity. But plants do not have such genetically determined growth limit. They keep growing throughout the life. Now let's turn to the activity that you have been asked to do in your book, okay? So that's the activity. They want you to identify different glands, the endocrine glands, and find out their functions. Now if you look at these glands, the important glands here are adrenal gland, that is suprarenal gland, thyroid gland, pituitary gland, okay, pancreas, testes, ovaries in female, okay, these are the important one. There are other glands as well. They are also important, but not for your stage. You don't need to remember them in too many details, such as pineal gland, hypothalamus, parathyroid gland, these are, and thymus. These are other glands, endocrine organs, but you don't need to remember them in great details, okay? So we'll go through few of them and find out what their functions are. So pineal glands, you can see they are situated in the brain, in the cranium, okay? They secrete melatonin, and melatonin has got various target organs. It functions as a biological clock, okay? Very important for your sleep wakefulness cycle. Other hormones, they come from pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is again located inside the cranium. It's a part of the brain. It secretes FSH, LH, ADH, growth hormone, oxytocin, and prolactin, okay? So the target organs for these hormones, FSH, LH, We will see this in reproductive system chapter. They work on ovaries and they are important for female reproductive cycle, menstrual system. Okay, both. ADH, antidiuretic hormone, works on kidney and it is important in osmoregulation. Okay. Now growth hormone works on various organs along with uterus and other organs. It works on almost every part of the body, is important in growth and division. Oxytocin works on breast tissue. It also works on uterus and it is important in birth contractions as well as milk production. Okay. Prolactin is important in breast tissue and many other tissues and important in milk production. Okay. So you can see various hormones from pituitary gland. I don't think you need great details of these hormones for your 10th level, but you will need them for your entrance exams in future. So just remember, there is a pineal gland in the brain. There is a pituitary gland in the brain. There are thyroid and parathyroid gland in the neck. So 2 in the brain, important ones. There is hypothalamus as well, but 2 glands, these are pineal and pituitary. Thyroid and parathyroid in the neck. Thymus in the chest. Okay, so let's go to thyroid. Thyroid produces thyroxine. Okay, and that works on the liver as well as many tissues in the body, almost every tissue in the body, and it controls the metabolism. Thyroid. Okay, we'll see little bit details of this thyroid now. Thyroxine. So thyroid gland is located in the front of the neck, in front of the trachea, that is our airway. Okay, thyroid gland. It has got 2 lobes, right lobe, left lobe. It produces thyroxine. Okay, so thyroxine, that is thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone can be T3 or T4. It also produces calcitonin that has important role in bone and kidney function. But thyroid hormones, they have important role in metabolism, in heart function, in digestion, in brain and nervous tissue, in bone health, and in muscle contraction. Okay, and calcitonin that is produced by thyroid gland works on parathyroid gland. It works in the renal system and it has a role in bone health as well. So that's about thyroid. Thyroid metabolism helps in the metabolism of proteins, fats and carbohydrates. Iodine is needed for thyroxine synthesis. So if you don't have enough iodine, you can get enlargement of the thyroid gland, that is called as goiter. Okay, so goiter is enlargement of the thyroid gland, and it happens in iodine deficiency. So thyroid gland normally it will be like this, 2 lobes, but in goiter it will be enlarged. Okay, so this needs to be removed. This needs to be treated medically or surgically. Now next hormone which I talked in the pituitary gland, that's growth hormone. Okay, so let's talk about growth hormone. It is useful in the growth and division. If you have less growth hormone, then the animal or human being do not develop very well, and that is called as dwarfism. So less than the normal height, less than the normal size is called dwarfism. If you have excessive growth hormone, the condition is called gigantism. So you have very tall, abnormal person who is extremely tall and has got big hands, big face, big skull, big jaw, and everything is big. So growth hormone that comes from pituitary gland is important in balanced growth and cell division. Okay. Now the next hormones here are, I'll talk about pancreas in the end. Let's go on to, we've talked about adrenals. Okay. We talk about ovaries and testes. So ovaries secrete estrogen and progesterone in females. They work on uterus, they work on breast tissue and various other tissues in the body. They are important in sexual function, menstrual cycle. Testes secrete testosterone. They also work on various organs in the body, including the muscles, and they have important role in male reproductive function and male characteristics. Now, at the age between 10 to 12, it can be variable in different people. There is a secretion of testosterone, increased secretion of testosterone in the boys, and estrogen and progesterone in the girls. That gives rise to changes in the body that are called as puberty. I'm sure you have heard this word, puberty. And when you go through this age, between 10 to 12, 10 to 14, you go through puberty. Now that diagram shows more details of how testosterone in males and estrogen and progesterone in females are controlled. So they are controlled from hypothalamus. Hypothalamus secretes GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, that works on pituitary. The pituitary secretes LH, FSH, that works on the gonads. In males, it produces testosterone. In females, it produces estrogen and progesterone. So that's how the secretion of male and female sexual or reproductive hormones is controlled. Now, the last bit we'll take from this glands is pancreas. It's a very important organ. It's an endocrine organ. It secretes hormones called insulin and glucagon. They work in liver and they work in other parts of the body as well. Insulin works on every cell of the body, and they control blood sugar and other metabolic functions. Okay, blood sugar control is the most important function, but it does control other metabolic functions as well. Now you might have heard of some relative of yours who has got diabetes mellitus. And what is this? It is increased blood sugar in patients. There are two types of diabetes mellitus. One is a type 1 and type 2. So in type 1, the pancreas fail to produce any insulin. So the glucose cannot enter inside the cells of the body. It stays outside in the blood. So blood glucose level increases. Okay. In type 2 diabetes, there is insulin production, but this insulin cannot work very well on the cell. So it normally, the insulin helps the cells to take the glucose in, but in type 2 diabetes, the insulin action is not effective, and it is called as insulin resistance. So glucose stays outside and there is increased blood sugar level, and it is called type 2 diabetes. So type 1, absence of insulin. Type 2, resistance to the action of insulin. Now last part of this talk is hormone feedback mechanism. How is hormone secretion controlled by the body? So feedback, what is feedback mechanism? So feedback mechanism is explained in this diagram. Now have a look at this diagram. There is a control center that releases hormones. They act on effector. The effector further releases hormones. and they produce results. And if the result produced is excessive, then it provides feedback to the control center to reduce the release of hormone. And if the result produced is not sufficient, it is less than what it should be, then the control center is stimulated to increase the production of hormone that will increase the release of further hormones from the effector. And this is how the feedback mechanism works. I'll explain you in more details here. Say now thyroid gland secretes thyroid hormones. If the thyroid hormones increase in quantity, it will stop the pituitary gland and hypothalamus to stimulate thyroid gland. So it is a negative feedback. Okay, if the thyroid hormones reduce, then that will stimulate the pituitary and hypothalamus to cause increased stimulation of thyroid gland. So there is a feedback mechanism. So when we eat food, the blood glucose level increases and the pancreas will secrete insulin that drops the blood sugar, because the sugar enters into the cell and the sugar comes to normal. Now if blood sugar, if someone is fasting, if their blood sugar falls, then pancreas will secrete glucagon. It will not secrete insulin. Okay, glucagon will increase the blood sugar and bring it back to normal level. So that's how the feedback mechanisms help. So food intake, there will be blood sugar increase, there will be secretion of insulin, it will drop the sugar. No food intake, fasting, blood sugar will fall, pancreas will cause glucagon release, that will increase the blood sugar to normal level. And that's how the feedback mechanisms work. So this was about the control and coordination in plants and in animals. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'll see you again in next chapter. Till then, take care. Bye bye.